For more on tonight's critical Game 5 at TD Garden in Boston between the Leafs and the Bruins, let's bring in our hockey insider, Darren Dreger. Darren, what's the latest you're hearing about Austin Matthews and his availability to play in tonight's game?
Well, I mean, best case scenario is that Austin Matthews, Gino, is doubtful for tonight's game against the Bruins. And I don't think that anyone who follows the team would be surprised by that based on some of the intelligence that has been provided directly by Sheldon Keefe and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm sure they're tired of talking about it. Austin Matthews has not been made available. But what's interesting is, how, the language has been used to kind of protect this story and the true identity of what's going on here. Now, the Leafs have gone as far as to say that Austin Matthews has been ill. I believe that, he became ill on Tuesday night, didn't feel great in Game 3, even though he played. Now, he may have been subjected to what has been described to me as a bit of a weird hit. And, maybe part of the problem is that when you're sick, you're somewhat vulnerable. It's a playoff game, so Austin Matthews clearly wanted to play and give his team another opportunity to win and take the edge in the series. He played through Game 3, played through 2 periods of Game 4, and then did not return for the 3rd period of Game 4. So now you start to question, all right, what sort of illness are we talking about here? So my understanding is, Gino, it's a culmination of issues here. The illness most definitely, not the stuffing out of Austin Matthews, but because he's provided such a physical presence in this series against the Boston Bruins, there's also an element of wear and tear on Austin Matthews that goes hand in hand with the illness. So again, I think he's doubtful for Game 5. That's my understanding. Could he return to the series? Absolutely. But Austin Matthews needs his teammates to bail him out so that he can rest and get everything that he needs to get back in this series for Game 6 or Game 7.
Dregs, it's interesting. It was exactly 8 years ago today the Leafs won the draft lottery that gave them the right to select Austin Matthews. Since then, a grand total of just 1 playoff series victory. If they can't get by the Boston Bruins, and that looks like an enormous task right now, how gigantic could we see the changes between now and the start of next season?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be change. To what capacity, I guess we don't know that for sure. You've got a new sheriff in town, the head of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, Keith Pelly. Is he going to be overall demanding? So do you start at the top of the food chain and look at the president in Brendan Shanahan? I think that it's a bit of a stretch to suggest that there could be change at that level. But again, until you've gone through the forensic audit and everybody involved in the process of the ultimate decision-making of leadership of the Toronto Maple Leafs have had their say or time to digest, then we can't be certain of anything. So automatically I look inside hockey operations, Gino, and I don't think that the Maple Leafs have a coaching problem, but we do know that Sheldon Keefe has been given multiple chances, opportunities here to push this team deeper into the Eastern Conference in the quest to hoist the Stanley Cup, and they haven't been able to get through the second round. So another first-round loss at the hands of the Boston Bruins most definitely is going to leave a mark, and I think that there will be repercussions, and I would expect that unfortunately for Keefe, who will coach again in the National Hockey League, he probably will end up paying the price. But it can't just be about management or coaching. It has to be about the makeup, the core of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that's where it gets really, really interesting. When you look at the bigger picture of the Maple Leafs, Gino, yeah, we talk about the core 4, which is Matthews and Marner and Tavares and Nylander. But really, right now, as we look into the offseason, what you see is a core 2. And that's Matthews and Nylander because they're under long-term extension. So what becomes of Mitch Marner, who has been a whipping boy in this market, in my opinion, for far too long, and the captain, John Tavares? They each have 1 year remaining on their contract. Not going to be easy to change that core because both those guys have no trades, no move clauses. But I think that that is the area that Brad Treliving, the general manager, is going to target. They've got to do something to improve their defense. So perhaps they use one of these blue chip pieces to do that. It's going to be a very impactful, certainly interesting offseason for the GM, Treliving.
It's going to be very, very interesting. You start talking about potentially moving blue chip prospects, blue chip talent on this roster. But of course, it's still in the Toronto Maple Leafs' hands. They've got to stay alive in Game 5 tonight. And then who knows? It's happened to the Boston Bruins just this time last year where they saw a team come back and oust them in the opening round. We'll see if the Toronto Maple Leafs have it in them or if we're set for an offseason of change. Hockey Insider, Darren Dreger.